Hello, today's episode is about RV slide-out awnings. In the last episode, I talked about main awnings, patio awnings, but today we're going to talk about slide-out awnings. And I want to welcome you to the show. This is Eric Stark with Radio Arizona RV, your best RV podcast. The podcast is for the RVer who likes to do the work himself or just wants to know how things work on an RV. Today's episode is number 66, and it is about RV slide-out awnings. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends and family. If you ever have any questions, you can contact me using the Contact Us page on Radio Arizona RV. I have a brick-and-mortar retail store for those that may be wondering. And I also have several websites where I sell products, and you can find links to these websites at radioarizonarv.com. Now, I don't sell every product that I talk about on our website, and there's reasons for it. Some they differ, but like today, we're talking about slide-out awnings, and I don't sell slide-out awnings on our website because it's a product that's too easy to order the wrong one. And rather than have you go through the headache and hassle of having to return something, I feel that if you just call us, we can walk you through the process and make sure you get the right awning that fits your slide-out the first time. And you're going to have other questions along the way. You know, how does it install? Is it easy to do? Can I do this myself? We can answer all that for you. So I want to thank you for listening today. And now let's get into episode number 66 and pick up this conversation about RV slide-out awnings. Now, today in the industry, COVID-19 is still happening. It's still out there. Things are getting back to the new normal. Manufacturers in the RV industry are getting back online. We're seeing more products coming back out. RVs are being made again. So things are taking shape, but there's still a shortage of products. There's still a shortage of RV awnings, awning fabrics. They're still a little hard to get. Slide-out awning fabrics. Well, we always have slide-out awning fabrics. You know, that's one of our big specialties. We've been shipping those things by the droves lately. But that's us. Hey, we're always different. So now, enough bragging about what we do and how well we do it. Let's talk about what the other guys and what they do and how well they do it. So this is what you need to know about RV slide-out awnings, what you don't need to know. You have three brands, Dometic, A&E, which they're the same. Dometic owns A&E, Carefree of Colorado, and Solera by Lippert. Pretty much the same for your patio awnings, window awnings. There's three brands out there, and that's it. But the most commonly question asked is, which one is better? And that's always a common question when there's a choice, right? Which one is better? Right now, I'm going to say Solera is probably the better one of all three. And the reason why is they took Dometic's old design or A&E's old design and they bought it from them and they improved upon it. They made it a little cleaner looking, a little more modern. It still has that old A&E look, which is actually kind of a cool look. It's simple. It doesn't stand out. They just cleaned it up and then they redid the torsion springs. So that way, when you're going down the road, they don't unfurl like some of the other brands do. And A&E had to have an anti-billows device on it that would actually, a little arm that sticks up, and you're going down the road, if the wind picked up the awning, the arm would go over to the side of the RV and hit a bracket and it'd keep the awning from coming out. Carefree solution is just to put metal covers on them, which metal covers are okay. They look all right. You know, for the short term, they look all right. Sometimes over time, they get a little beat up. They look kind of crummy. Makes changing the fabric a little more difficult, but it's not the end of the world. You know, it's still very doable, especially for do-it-yourselfer. But that's just me. You know, for years, I liked the Dometic A&E slide-out awning. That's the old style one. And so now Solera takes that and improves upon it, and I like it even more. But we'd sell all three. You know, the new Dometic slide-out awning, it's very nice. It's got a nice look to it. So does the Carefree one, the Ascent. It's nice looking. It's, it looks similar to the Dometic one. And they both work well, but I just prefer the Solera. That's me though. But you might look at them and say, hey, I like the look of this one a little bit better. Because at the end of the day, right now, all three of them function just about the same. They work good. They don't have any glaring problems. So there it goes to that thing how sometimes, someone's going to answer this question with bias. It's their preference. And if you're asking me and I'm selling you one, I'm going to start with Solera. But I will offer you the other brands or see if you're interested if you care. Sometimes people will have, hey, I want a Carefree, that's what I want, and that's it. Or maybe you're matching something. But you're typically not replacing slide-out awnings, very often because they generally last a lifetime. Replace the fabric, a part here and there. But it's not a product that you're always replacing. It's on a new RV. It doesn't have a slide-out awning. You're putting it on there. That's when you're going to be doing that. As I said, a lot of new RVs aren't coming with slide-out awnings on them. So the brand, they're all very similar. I just prefer Solera because I feel it's a little bit better. But you might want a Carefree because you like to look better. If that's your decision, that's a good decision. You're not going to regret it. You're really not. So whichever brand you pick, that's the one you want to go with. And right now, Dometic, they've closed their factories in the U.S. They're moving everything to Mexico as far as awnings go. So getting their product right now is very difficult. Keep that in mind if you're shopping today. Solera or Carefree might be the solution or the ones you really have to choose from. But some dealerships, some guys that sell these, they might not want to sell a particular brand just because they just don't like it. They don't think it works that well. Maybe they had a bad experience with it. Maybe they've had a bad experience with the company. I don't mince words when it comes to Dometic. We do have problems with Dometic, but I still think they make a good product. They're just a different company. They're a different breed. You have to sometimes take it with a grain of salt, what someone recommends, or you go with it if you feel you can trust them. I'm not going to steer anybody in the wrong direction. If you want a Carefree, no problem. If there's a problem with the current model of Carefree slide-out awnings, I'll let you know. Or if it's, Dometic or Solera, Solera's, they can make a bad awning too. They can make a change to it that makes it not so good. So then at that point, I wouldn't recommend it anymore, or it wouldn't be my first choice. So are there differences, though, that really that stand out as being important when we're talking about slide-out awnings? Are there huge differences that just, are going to grab you by the shirt and shake you? No. That's a big letdown, right? No. They're pretty similar. They do the same thing. When you bring your slide room out, they come out with it. When you bring your slide room in, they go in with it. How do they function in the wind when you're driving down the road? Well, right now they're all working about the same. A&E still has the anti-billows device that has to be put on there to keep it from unfurling or billowing while you're going down the road, which is okay. It's not as noticeable now as it used to be. Where the Solera one, they just redid the springs, and they're tighter springs, tougher springs, so they don't have the anti-billows device, even though it is the old A&E style awning. One awning might function a little bit different. Just a tiny bit, how it rolls up, or like the old Carefrees or Carefrees in general have one torsion spring in them, where Dometic and Solera have two torsion springs, which I think is better. But the Carefree ones seem to work. Like if you go back in time to where Dometic had their old style slide-out awning, they're branded as A&E. And you look at a Carefree SOK, it would have the metal cover on it, plastic end caps. Both of them kind of work the same, It's pretty close. The old SOKs weren't my favorite because replacing the fabric is a little bit harder, especially for a do-it-yourselfer, a little bit of a learning curve there. But they're not really that difficult. They're just different. And they had the metal cover on them. Some of them just have a half metal cover, which is called a wind deflector, or the full metal cover. And that was to keep the wind off them so you're going down the road and they wouldn't, unfurl or billow. Well, that was the one that I saw the most billowing down the road would be Carefree of Colorado's SOK awnings with the metal covers. Now, they improved those. They made them a little bit different. They changed the cover style. It's more of a full cover rather than just a partial cover. So they improved upon that. They realized, hey, we got a problem here, and they addressed it. It took a while, but they did it. But I never really saw that happening with Dometic slide-out awnings, traveling down the road. And living in Arizona, you saw tons of RVs going down the road, and you'd see all kinds of stuff. It's not to say it didn't happen, because I know it did, because every now and then we'd have to replace a fabric and an anti-billow device because the awning came undone while they were going down the road or billowed out. So it did happen, but it seemed like Carefree were more. So those are little differences, but those things worked themselves out over time. Like I said, Carefree redesigned their awning, came out with some new ones. But that's still not the end of the world, because generally when you're in heavy winds like that, you probably don't want to be driving anyways. And then when you're in heavy winds that, are going to pull an awning out, well, that's just par for the course if you're driving in heavy winds. And you hear this all the time, or at least I do. Patio awnings get destroyed. They have to pull over because they can't keep the RV on the road. The trailer wants to jackknife. The bottom line is, if you're driving in heavy winds, it might just be better to stop and let them die down a little bit, then keep going. But like me, I'm always in a hurry. So when I get on the road, I don't want to stop for anything. Heavy winds, tornadoes, hurricanes, who cares? Let's just keep going, We'll deal with the problems later. But that's not really the best mindset to have, right? So how do you choose a brand or model? This gets a little repetitive here because all three of them are very similar, right? Well, it's real simple. If it's an insurance job, you're replacing an awning, your slide out awning, you got too close to something, tore it up, and you have to replace the awning. It's damaged beyond repair. If that model is still available, you just go back with the same model because it's going to use the same mounting holes. There's not going to be new holes put in the slide out. It's going to look good. It's going to work better. It's an awning you're familiar with. Maybe you've replaced the fabric on it before, so now you're going to know how to do that. You don't have to relearn anything. If you have other slide rooms, it's going to match those awnings that are on the other slide rooms. That's the case where it gets damaged beyond repair. Your insurance company's kicking in and they got to pay for this. Generally, these are insurance jobs. And by the way, when you're doing something with insurance, most of the time, you do not have to get more than one estimate. So go to the place you want to go, tell them it's insurance up front, and don't worry about the price. The insurance company pays the price. And you will pay, the insurance company will pay full retail because it's the one time an RV store can actually charge what they need to charge. And that sounds crazy. But the insurance company doesn't care. They just pay it. They pay the labor, they pay the shipping, they pay the cost of the awning. And you shouldn't care either. You're getting a new awning for free. It's going on your RV. Your insurance company's repairing it. Well, I shouldn't say for free. You probably have a deductible. Just go to the place that you trust and let them give you an estimate, turn it into your insurance company, and generally you're good to go. Now, it's just easier to put the same model back on. Let's get away from the insurance for a moment. That's if it's possible. Sometimes, the awnings get discontinued. We're like, A&E changed their style and they went to this new style one, but the bracket still worked in place of the old one. So if you had to upgrade an older one to a newer one, the new bracket would cover all the holes where the old mounting bracket was. And that's nice because you don't want any extra holes just out there. Even if you seal them, they're holes. They don't look good. So that makes it real sweet, easy to do. And of course, if you're paying for this out of pocket, it's going to cost a little bit less because there's less labor involved. Now, with that being said, can you switch to a different brand? Yeah, you can, but the holes are the thing. You might have different holes. Not every brand's going to work. And some of these older slide out awnings, like the Carefree Omega ones, they have these like little arms that look like question marks and they double as a window awning. Now, if you take those off, you replace those, the brackets that are on there, they're going to be vertical and they're on the sides of the slide room. So you would just leave those on there and put your new slide out awning on, and you leave the old brackets on because it just covers up the holes. You don't have to do anything with it unless you want to really get, crazy and take the brackets off and have some fiberglass work done, get the holes filled and have it, refinished. But probably not worth doing because that's going to be an older RV and probably never get your money back out of that. But those old Omega awnings, they seem to keep on working. Although most people don't use them as a window awning as they are designed to, they just use them as a slide out awning, which makes more sense. One less thing to do. They're not that friendly to use as a window awning, kind of a chore. Then if you're doing that and you break something, well, now you've got to replace that awning because you can't get parts for them anymore. Well, parts don't come easy, that's for sure. You can probably find them somewhere. Everybody always seems to be able to dig up a part for those. But So you can switch to different brands. It just depends on the brand and what you have and what you want to go to, whether you're going to have, there's going to be holes that'll need to be filled or covered, or maybe you have to leave the old brackets on. But, switching brands probably isn't going to do much. Even the same brand, you might still have the same problem. Even a new Carefree is not going to cover up the holes where an old Carefree Omega awning was. And, over the years, Carefree's had a lot of different slide-out awnings. They've had some pretty interesting things. I remember seeing a couple that looked like they were window awnings that were converted into slide-out awnings back in the early days of, when Carefree was first making these, when slide rooms first came out. They looked like hideous monsters that someone made in their garage. Pretty bad. If you had one of those, just do whatever you do to get that thing off there and put something on that's better, because they were just junk. And I'm not knocking Carefree. They were just coming out with a product trying to, meet a demand, and that's what they came out with at first. But then they changed, they modified it, they got better. The one thing about Carefree, they're always coming out with different models and styles, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. I'm not sure. But they do try. They're constantly making changes, which is, you can appreciate that. They're trying to make their product better, which some companies, in general don't. That's kind of the nutshell on slide-out awnings. Now, I'm going to talk about working on them for a moment, replacing fabrics. Now, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of it, the nuts and bolts, because that's, more time-consuming, and there's plenty of videos on the internet that show how to do this. But all slide-out awnings, basically, all they really ever need is a replacement fabric and maybe a torsion spring. And that's almost it. Generally, they don't need anything else. You don't have to lubricate them. You don't have to get up there and do anything, adjustments. When a fabric's being replaced, if they do it the way that makes sense, they can put an extra turn on the roller tube if you feel you need one, or a couple extra turns. That would be the time to put a little oil in the springs if on the Carefrees. Well, actually, the old Carefree SOKs, the way their system worked, it was a plastic bearing basically on aluminum shaft. So putting a little, silicone in there would help make it unwind and rewind a little bit better. But the maintenance is, next to nothing on them, especially a Solera or an A&E. So the fabrics are the big thing. And one of the questions that we constantly get asked, and even when we address it on our website, it still just comes up. I'm not sure why or what we need to do to answer this question in a more obvious way. But most of the slide-out awnings made over the years were all the same depth, 49 inches. And that's what we make our replacement fabrics at, 49 inches. And one reason why we do that, so if you have an A&E, you don't have to mess with the anti-billow device, because sometimes if you get a different size fabric and you roll and bring the awning in and out, the anti-billow device will be in the wrong place and you have to adjust it. Most of the time with our fabric, you don't have to do that because it just puts it back in the same place if it was installed correctly to begin with. It's not a huge thing to change it. It's just one more thing you have to do. So why mess with it? And we never did that. We never had to adjust those when we were doing slide-out fabrics like in Arizona. We do 10,000 feet in a winter season. And we never had to readjust those anti-billow devices. Sometimes they were broken. We'd have to replace it because of that. But beyond that, pretty straightforward. Carefree, it doesn't matter because they don't have that anti-billow device. Many RVers are asking, about the depth. Will my slide-out only comes out 17 inches? What'll happen to the extra fabric, if I get a 49-inch fabric? Well, it just rolls up on the roller tube. It's pretty simple. It just rolls up on the roller tube. And in most cases, when they take off their fabric, they're going to have a 49-inch deep fabric. And the extra material is just rolled up on the roller tube. They might not be able to see that from the ground, or maybe they're not looking that closely, but that's how it is. And we do come across some Carefrees, and it seems to just be Carefrees where the fabrics aren't as deep. Maybe the slide room only comes out 17 inches and the fabric will only be, let's just say 30 inches deep from bead to bead. And that's fine. I don't know if Carefree made those or if they're replacement fabrics that got installed that way. And I'm assuming they're replacement fabrics, because I don't know if Carefree ever did that. I haven't asked them, and it's not really worth, thinking too much about. But if your awning has a narrow fabric or it's not as deep, and you put the bigger one on, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not going to change anything. No one has had any problems with it. And over the years, we've run into them here and there, and we've never had any issues with it. You just put on the bigger fabric and you move on. You could put an extra turn on the roller tube if you wanted to, or a couple turns. It kind of depends on how that fabric was installed originally. If there's still the same amount of tension or not. There should be. But like I said, sometimes weird things happen when people do stuff. So don't worry about the extra materials, what I'm saying. You don't have to order it with a specific size, like, feel that you have to make yours 30 inches deep or 32 inches deep or 28 inches deep. The standard size will work. Now, if you feel more comfortable doing it that way, or feel it's going to be easier, less material to deal with, you can get it that way from us. We will cut it to the size you want. There's no problem. There's no extra charge. We already have it on the cutting table. So we just, change one dimension. It's not a big deal. But you don't have to have it that way. And I'm just saying that because sometimes we can spend time looking for things that we don't need to look for. You just need the long measurement. That's it. And so the other thing we get questioned about a lot with slide out awning fabrics is the question is, do we hem the edge of it? Not the part that goes on the RV and the roller tube, but the edge is exposed. And no, we don't. There's a fabric that's been out there. I think it's just a replacement fabric where the edges have been hemmed. It might have been Carefree making it one time. I'm not 100% on that. Like I said, I haven't lost any sleep over it. But they are hemmed. But, they make the end of the roller tube thicker with the fabric being hemmed because it doubles it up. So the fabrics don't always roll up correctly. And you're going to see that's a problem with awnings in general. Solera has done away with that on their universal fabrics. They no longer hem the edge of the material. Carefree solution is, and I think I brought this out in the patio awnings too, is their fabric is narrower at the roller tube and wider at the RV. So as it rolls up, the hem is not stacking up on top of itself. It reduces the wrinkles. Slide out awnings, they don't have a hem on the edge. So there's no wrinkles from that. The hem is just raw, as they say. It's unfinished. But generally, they don't really tear. It's not a weak point. After 10, 12 years or extreme wind for, long periods of time, the edge might start to fray or tear up at the, next to the RV, but all awning fabrics seem to tear up next to the RV. We do have a 18-ounce vinyl slide out awning replacement fabric that has a 10-year warranty on it. We call it the Ultra fabric. It's not like our 18-ounce fabric with the 5-year warranty. It's a completely different fabric. We just didn't extend the warranty. It's a different fabric. And, we've hit it with a chainsaw. We've shot it with a gun. We've drilled holes through it. We've, done everything trying to tear it. We've lit it on fire. It won't burn. We've done everything under the sun to this material. We made a tow strap out of it and towed a 6,600-pound pickup truck. Didn't even phase the material. That sounds like a sales pitch for the fabric. Well, heck, it is. It's my podcast. I can sell what I want, right? Just kidding there. But it's just, the fabric is bulletproof, basically. It's a really good fabric. So there are differences in fabric quality, but as far as the edges go, they're going to be fine. Even our 13-ounce material with a 3-year warranty, the edge is going to be fine for years and years to come. So don't sweat that is, really the point here. And that's the standard. Carefree, Awnings, and Solera do not hem the edges today. No one does it. Now, you might think, well, that doesn't mean that it makes it right. Well, you're right. But in this case, we're not just following the herd because that's the easiest thing to do. We're doing it because it makes sense. There's no point in hemming the edge on a slide-out awning fabric. Those are the two things, the depth and the edges, the major thing. And, to measure a slide-out awning fabric, you just measure the long measurement or the length of it. The terminology here gets kind of jumbled around. Some people call the long measurement the width. We call it the length. We call it the long measurement. Long measurement makes the most sense. The depth is often referred to as the width. We don't try to change the terminology. We kind of flow with it and just explain it as we go when we're talking to someone. If you call us up and say, hey, I want to order a slide-out fabric, what do I need to do? We tell you to measure the length of it or the long measurement. Give us the long measurement. The depth, we make them all the same. And, that makes sense. Okay, you understood that. So you're not going to get that second measurement, just a long measurement, and then you're good to go. And that's all you need. Slide out awnings, you just go by the fabric size. And the only other real thing you need to know is if you have an A&E slide out awning fabric with a flexible metal weather shield, then it requires a different size bead. We call it medium bead. We have, some pretty simple terminology: big bead, medium bead, and little bead. Most slide out awning fabrics, probably 90% of them, regardless of the brand, require a big bead and little bead. Only the A&E with the flexible metal weather shield requires a different size bead to go into the metal weather shield, and it's what we call a medium bead. And the size of it is 0.185. The small bead is 0.165. The big bead is 0.25. It's 1/4 inch. It's the same size bead that's on any awning on an RV that attaches to the side of it using the awning rail. I hope that makes sense. The flexible metal weather shield on A&E awnings only requires the medium bead. Any other slide out awning on there is big bead, little bead. And we sell thousands and thousands and thousands of feet of this stuff a year. So we understand the whole big bead, medium bead, little bead. It works. The sizes we use work. And we stick with the same brand, the same stuff. So there's never changes, there's no surprises. So that's, basically the questions you would have down the road after you own an RV or you put a new slide out awning on the RV, replacing a fabric, maintenance, repairing it. It is an awning, so if you ever repair it, you do have to be careful, like the A&Es with the torsion assemblies. Well, Carefrees, all of them, they have springs in there. They're wound tight, so you do have to be careful. Watch your fingers, watch your knuckles. I've been hit a couple times, and it hurts really bad, especially if you get hit on the top of the hand or right on a knuckle. You got to be careful there. I've heard of people breaking fingers, breaking wrists. So always watch those torsion springs on any type of awning, even window awnings. I always joked with my buddy Carl, who helped me in Arizona. I always called them baby torsions, nothing to be afraid of. But, when they hit your fingers, they do hurt, and they can cut them. So they're maybe baby torsions, but they still got the bite of an adult torsion. So that's awnings, slide out awnings. I'm not going to say in a nutshell because I covered a lot of ground here, but it gives you what you need to know, the basics. And as always, you can call me. I'm always open for questions. And so if you have them, give me a jingle. A lot of things to think about here, but it's all pretty basic. And just keep that in mind. You're the do-it-yourselfer, so you can understand this stuff. And what I always recommend people to do, too, is when we're talking about replacing fabric, sometimes walk out to the slide out so they can visualize it. Because, even though they see it all the time, sometimes when they see it, refresh it in their memory or in their mind, they'll go, hey, okay, now I get it. Or I say that, when you get into the job, all these things we're describing to you will make more sense. And it does. I've had people describe things to me and it doesn't make any sense until you actually get your hands on the parts and start touching and go, oh, okay, here we go. Now this makes sense. All right, so we're going to wrap that up. Now, one other thing I want to say is, prices are going up. I've noticed it on, major websites, Amazon, eBay, prices are going up. Our supplier prices are going up. So COVID-19 is changing things in another direction. If you have to buy expensive things, the higher end items, big ticket stuff, it might be worthwhile buying them now. It seems like everything's going up. In some cases, it's for real. Some cases, it's just a reason to raise prices. I'm not saying that to scare you. It's just reality. This is what happens in big things like this. It's a reason to raise prices because everything else gets more expensive. So it's said. And I've noticed our costs have gone up on a lot of things. And we'll see that probably continue for the next month or two, few months. And COVID-19, the experts say it's not going away. Get your RV ready. You have a bubble there. It's very safe to go out in your RV. You can get away from people. Even in an RV park, you don't have to go associate with everybody, but you still have that bubble. So if you go someplace, you're staying in an RV park, from there, that can be your base to get out into the great outdoors, wherever it might be. So RVs are an awesome thing to have right now. Living in Montana here, you can take your RV just up in the mountains, 20 minutes away and you're away from everybody, which is pretty cool. but not everywhere is like that. But getting in your RV and getting out of the city, out of where the people are at, can give you a little bit of relief. Your RV is your bubble. You can sanitize it, and it's clean. You know what you got, right? It's not like getting in a motel room or anything like that. So, just use your RV. Take advantage of it. This is a great time to own an RV. Make sure it's functioning properly. There's no problems with it. Get everything working well so you have problem-free vacation days or little short trips, whatever it might be. All right, so I want to, again, thank you for listening. This is episode number 66 about RV slide-out awnings, and this is Eric Stark with Radio Arizona RV.